Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Inside the Coach's Office. My name is Tom Murphy Jr. I'm here with Coach Brian Barnes, head coach of Bishop Foley Catholic High School. And we are both very, very excited to welcome Coach Corey Parker from River Rouge High School. Coach Parker, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Really excited to, talk and have a conversation, talk some ball a little bit. Always a good time. All I would need right now is a coffee or a cold beverage, but can't drink while you're online. So
fair point.
Yes. So, okay. So this is our second episode. Our first episode we did last week, and we previewed the Michigan High School Football Coaches Association 2022 clinic, where both of you were featured speakers. And I guess, Coach Barnes, how did you feel about that clinic as a whole, and what did it feel like to be a speaker?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't disappoint, from, listening to Coach Tony Anise at Fair State, Coach Mel Tucker at Michigan State, Josh Heupel from Tennessee talking, and all the other sessions I went to. Unfortunately, I didn't get to hear Coach Parker's session because I was speaking at the same time. That would have been one I would have loved to go to, but, it didn't disappoint. It was an awesome opportunity to catch up with some old friends and, exchange some ideas and whatnot. But, it's kind of one of those deals when you go to a clinic and on your way home, you're even though it's the middle of January, you kind of feel like, all right, you know what, let's go coach right now. Like we can pad up and go get after it and get ready to go. So yeah, it was a great time.
Coach Parker, how did you feel about how the clinic went, and what did it mean for you to be a featured speaker, and how much do these clinics help you in your coaching journey?
Well, to answer the first question, the clinic was great because it was the return of the clinic, per se. We didn't have a clinic in the 2021 year, an in-person one. We had a virtual deal, and it was cool, but it wasn't, what clinics are all about, which is all about relationships and seeing guys that you haven't seen, since the last clinic, and having conversations and relationship building and all that stuff. So that was great. The opportunity to do a lot of that. Obviously, the speakers that we had this year were phenomenal, from Nick Saban on a Zoom all the way to Josh Heupel, so 2 SEC coaches, and then obviously with Coach Tucker, it just phenomenal speakers. And then you mix in Coach Tony Anise, who won a national championship, and then the slew of great high school coaches that had a lot of success this year. If you don't learn any ball, shame on you. It's not because it's not presented, but it's definitely shame on you if you didn't pick up a note or two that you could take back to your program and really help them. And that's how I look at my success, my journey. I started off sleeping on the floor at clinics. I would room with guys. I didn't have enough money to get my own hotel room. And I would literally be sleeping on the floor underneath the sink in the back, by the bathroom, just trying to make sure I had a place to stay, because I wanted to learn some ball. I wanted to get better. I wanted to I wanted to use my competitive nature to pick up as many notes as possible, organize them as such, and then find out how I could bring it into the program that I was in at the time. That was UAD Jesuit. I was a defensive backs coach and wide receivers coach there under Coach Scott Merchant. And I wanted to just, be the best coach I could be for him. And that was at the Glacier Clinic that used to be in Troy, at the Troy Hyatt. And so obviously things have changed now, whereas now, I'm a head coach, and I've got money to get my own hotel room. But the fact is still the same. I'm very competitive, and I want to make sure I can go to a clinic and pick up some notes and information that applies to my program. I can bring it back and really concentrate it into maybe our focus for that year, or a topic for that year, or a scheme for that year, or a technique for that year that we could use to really help the kids. Because that's what it's all about, helping the young men get better. And you're not going to do that just sitting in your own living room watching football. You got to go and learn from the best coaches around. The clinics are the best ways to do that.
Tom, listening to Corey right now, like you can tell why kids want to run through a wall for him, man. Like, dude, I'm fired up right now. Just like 2 minutes listening to you talk, man. Let's go get it. This is gonna be a great show.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. So let's talk about. I want you guys to kind of expand on, because the coach clinic, it's not what you guys talked about. It's not like widely available online, but is there anything about your particular speeches, and this is for both you coaches, that you really want to highlight that people could, learn from, so Coach Martins, for you, how did you go about your speech or your presentation, and what did you want people to get out of it? And then Coach Parker, I want to ask you the same question.
Yeah, I would say, I focused on conceptual things more so than like offensive scheme specific, right? Because obviously there's a wide range of offensive schemes, and the certain offensive coaches that and their personalities and how they call the game and whatnot. And so, talking about the screen game, we do it from spread personnel, 10 personnel stuff, spread offense, but I wanted to present it in a way that teams that run a T formation or maybe more of a pro style offense can also tailor it, to what they do. So I focused conceptually, and I really wanted those guys to see that, what we do can be adaptable, to their situation and what they do, and just letting them, know that they can be creative and have some fun with their offense with the screen game.
Coach Parker, what are your thoughts on that? How did you present your presentation, if you will?
Well, I went about it as I am typically every day. I came in there with a high level of energy and excitement and passion about what we do at River Rouge, and it wasn't going to be a let's say a scheme wholesale change talk. It was more a presentation of the odd front and using it in multiple ways, trying to defend anything from full house T to 10 personnel to 11 personnel pro stuff, and really being able to mix it in and really giving our why behind how we got to the point of becoming an odd front group, and the success that we've had behind it. So I tried to present it not as a wholesale change, because that's hard to ask a coaching staff to do, but more of an outlook to create a visual picture for people to see just how easy we transition from being, a bare front to a underfront, to now being able to use a mixture of those two fronts with a oaky, a tight, and a mint front, which is really just an amoeba of the bare front and the underfront in so many ways. So we really got into that talk, and it was good. And I think transparent, so that if there's coaches in the room that really had questions, I was able to answer them or just create some dialogue or a personal connection with them by giving my business cards out so they could communicate with me if they had questions after the talk. So it was really, really good.
Corey, Coach mentioned something really important too. Was I had a chance to hear him talk a couple of years ago at the Glazier Clinic. It was a chalk war session, and when you're fiery as a speaker, or you go to listen to somebody that's passionate about what they do, or that are passionate about the topic, it goes a long way. And so maybe, like Coach was saying, maybe they're not a complete, they're not an odd front team, and that's not their structure, so to speak. But the way you present it and the way you're talking about, why you do it that way, can really convince a lot of coaches to see themselves, implementing that into their defense, just based on how it gets presented to you.
Now, how much when there's so many coaches there, and there's so much going on, how do you pick and choose who you want to go watch, and what can you learn from these other coaches, especially with both you guys have had incredible success in the past few years, or last decade, how do you pick and choose who to go watch, and then what can you take from really seeing these other coaches presenting themselves? Because at that clinic, there were so many different coaches talking about so many different things. So how did you guys, being, professionals and respected at a high level, how did you guys pick and choose who you watched and, what you choose to take from that clinic?
Well, for me, I had, I had 12 members of my staff there. And so that's my entire varsity staff. The only guys that weren't here was my middle school staff and JV staff. And so I sent those guys to go and bring notes back from every session. Right. And so with that, what am I specifically looking for? I'm a defensive guy. So I'm not going to sit and listen to other defensive guys. I'm going to go and sit and listen to the offensive guys because I want to know from their perspective, what is it they're doing and why they're doing it. So I can always have a counter and a plan behind what we do in comparison to what the offense does. We don't want to just become a grab baggy style of defense. We're just doing stuff because we just think it's cool, right? Because we found on the internet. We want to really have an educated approach to saying, if this is what they're doing, these are the things that makes it difficult for them. Where do you get that information from? The clinic talks. They're going to eventually tell the truth at what's difficult for them or what gives them issues. And if they don't, at least you had a vivid picture of what it is that these coaches are capable of doing and what they're trying to get you is eventually to see. Because offense is really smoke and mirrors. They want to really get you thinking one way and do something to affect that. Then there's some guys that's just going to beat you over the head with a bludgeon, you know what I mean, and just boom, boom, boom. But not too many guys want to do that nowadays. So most people are outsmarting you and countering you. So I want to know, what are these offensive guys thinking? Because the game of football changes every year. There's something new that comes out every year, and you got to stay inside the curve. If not, you'll be lost for years if you're just focused on just your stuff.
Yeah, Coach, really quick, I want to give a shout out to Coach Tone. I haven't seen him in probably 10 years. Coach Antonio Ragland, that's my guy. Great guy.
Yeah.
Haven't seen him in a while. It was good to see him the other day. To echo kind of what Corey was saying, coaching defense is hard. Like, I give a ton of credit to you guys. I mean, you guys see a different offense just about every week. You try to mirror your defensive personnel and structure to the offenses you see, all the different rules that, go against defenses and defensive players. Like, you guys got it difficult. So props to all you defensive coaches out there, for me personally, I accept the fact that I still have some deficiencies as a coach. I mean, we're always learning, try to learn more. There are some things on the other side of the ball that obviously I could learn more. And so that's important to me. And then when it comes to my staff, similar to Coach, I want them to go and I tell our coaches, you're the head coach of your position. So you are in charge of making sure you are making that position the best that you can. So we're ready to compete on Friday night. And so the other part of that is that, I've got guys on my staff that aspire to be head coaches someday. And so I want them to make sure they go to some sessions of a position they don't coach so they can, broaden their football knowledge a little bit. That'll help them down the road when they are ready to apply to be a head coach.
That's excellent. All right, I'm going to switch gears a bit here. Coach Parker, I want to get into something. All right, first of all, I got to say, when I was kind of researching you online, I had a lot of fun. You are a very energetic presence, especially online. So how do you take that energy that you have and take it into building a culture? Because from what I learned, you came in 2009, you were pretty young. I think with 26, I think you were when you got your first head coaching job. That's a lot of responsibility for a young man. Coach Barnes, you're kind of the same way. You were young too when you got it. So But now, like you take this energy you have and this social media presence. How does that help build the culture that you have going on at River Rouge right now?
Well, it wasn't difficult because this is who I am. I don't have 3 different Facebook pages, 3 different Twitters, or in Corey Parker's Corey Parker. You know, what you see is what you get. This is who I was as a player. And, you know, I played with a lot of energy, a lot of fire. And when I became the head football coach, I felt I was going to infuse that inside of my program. The level of energy you see in me is the same level of energy that you see in our pregame parade, which is a tradition that we have here in River Rouge. And it had died off when when I got here. They weren't doing it anymore. And it's literally a parade from the school to the stadium. And it shuts down all the main streets in River Rouge. All the old ladies that used to be cheerleaders and all the guys who used to be football players back in the day, they put on their old uniforms and they're marching down the street with you. And so, you know, I'm the front of that parade. It's like, you know, I'm creating the level of energy and excitement, but ultimately building a culture that you want to be a part of. And that's what I think that we've created here. And obviously we have a large social media following because I got a strong social media following. So now we have what you call Rouge Files, which gives you know, people that's all over the country that are supporters of ours, fans, alumni, an opportunity to get you know, a window peek at this week's game, the opponent, the highlights that came behind it, some great music to follow with it. And you really see us in a very, you know, open and transparent magnitude, open enough where last year we had, you know, Netflix, Amazon Prime, HBO Max reaching out to our Rouge Files, try and pick us up for possibly a 4-part series, you know, and so, or 4-episode series. So the level of excitement is genuine. You know, you can't fake it. There's no scripts, you know, and because when you start doing that, it gets really stale. You can really see
coaching
something strange.
Kids see right through you too when you're faking it.
Exactly. It's crystal clear. And so what you see is what you get. When I got here, I had to reestablish some traditions, but we had to do it from the heart first with a level of energy or a level of pride that we weren't going to waver and back off no matter who the opponent was. Because the number one opponent that we were dealing with initially was us. We had to be a better brand of us first before we could worry about who we were beating. And so now we're to the point where we are able to deal with us and hold ourselves accountable. That's how we are able to get better. But at the same time, we're able to turn it on against an opponent and just, you know, take the leashes off those dogs and let them run, you know. And so that's what makes us a little bit different. That, you know, I don't mind running with those dogs. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mind getting out there with them. Hey, let's get after it. Let's go right now. And so that's what I think creates that level of excitement. Everybody knows homecoming week. I put on my old Eastern Michigan equipment and I get out on the field with the players. And so it's turned into not just Coach Parker versus the team. It's like alumni and Coach Parker versus the team. You know, at the end of practice, you know, a quick, you know, 2-period scrimmage, you know, 20 plays, alumni versus the team. And it's like it boils over a level of energy, excitement, enthusiasm, and intensity like no other. So it's just some certain things that we have here, certain traditions that have created excitement for not only me, not only the players, but the entire community. So it's been an entire community buy-in because so many people are vested and involved with watching how this place has grown. You know, when I got here, there was about 450 kids enrolled in school. Right now, we have over 1,100 students enrolled inside of our high school. And so most people would tell you, oh, Coach Parker can recruit. It's not 700 additional football players. I only have 60 uniforms, for crying out loud. So the reality of it is it's a bunch of kids that see what's going on, and kids want to be a part of fun. And that's what's made us a little bit different. And obviously, that's what's made us a little bit different. And obviously, it's been a lot of growth and success academically now at our school because of that. Because, you know, when student population is up, student achievement is up. And so that's pretty much what has made our story look very successful on all ends, academics and athletics.
Coach, that's awesome. You know, what's funny is I'm at a private school, and, you know, we've been successful the last couple of years, and I'm sure there are people out there that question what we do and our methods and whatnot with the recruiting thing. And I've known you a long time, and that's definitely not who you are. That's not who I am. I mean, we generally want what's best for our kids, and we coach the kids that come to our building, and we want them to have a great experience and, you know, learn life lessons through the game of football that they take with them to the next level.
Yep, that's right. I agree.
Yeah. So, Coach Barnes, what are some of the things that you guys do at Bishop Foley that are kind of like what he was saying, Coach Parker was saying, that are some like little special traditions that you guys have that are really like special to Bishop Foley High School football?
Yeah, so, you know, when I got hired, our first team camp, we had 9 kids show up. And so I knew it was going to be a challenge right from the get-go. And, you know, over time, we've built up something that I think is, you know, that's been pretty special. You know, it starts with, you know, one of the things I focused on is like kind of what Coach mentioned, right? Like take a broad point of view in terms of like caring about the kid as a human being, you know, as much as we do a football player, right? So that's academically, you know, socially, mentally, spiritually, all that stuff. We're trying to form the whole person here, right? And so, you know, Friday Night Lights, there's something special about that. And so whenever I, you know, try to talk to kids about playing the game of football, like I don't talk about like, hey, come win championships. You know, I tell them like, hey, like you're going to come make some memories with a lot of great people, that care about you, make some new friends and whatnot that you're going to carry with you the rest of your life. And so I think that approach has helped me out a lot, where kids, you know, as soon as, you know, if you're a kid that's a little bit bigger, right, all of a sudden everybody thinks, oh, he should play football or he should play basketball, right? Well, you know, a kid hears that, you know, so many times, right, they get sick of it and don't really want to do it. So I kind of take the different approach to like, yeah, I would like you to play football, but I also think every boy should play the game of football, you know, just because of how it makes you feel and what it does for you, you know, throughout your life. And so I focus on that angle, and it's helped us a lot the last few years. A couple of the things that are, you know, unique to us, I think, is we have a special day where we have a Football for Women Day. What we do is all the moms, aunts, sisters, you know, cousins, any woman that's important to our players in their lives, come out on a Saturday, and the players actually take them through a simulated practice. And so the women out there get to, because I mean, I'm married. My wife played women's professional football for the Detroit Demolition back in the day. I have 3 daughters that, you know, the one daughter is like the daughter of Remember the Titans. I mean, they're pretty fired up and love football. And so I think it's great the amount of women that take an interest into our Football for Women Day, and they come out there and they practice, and the players take them through it, and it's great. And when we're finished, I have the boys actually, you know, read a letter, you know, to mom or to whoever's there in front of everybody. And it's a real special, genuine moment where they get to show their appreciation because, you know, don't kid yourself. Sometimes as guys, especially a teenage boy, it's hard to tell people sometimes you love them, right? Especially a guy, right? You're a tough guy and you don't want to do that. And so that's a special day that we have that has grown over the years, and more players that we get out, the more and more women we get out to participate in it. And that's a lot of fun. One of the other things we do is we have a, you know, kind of like a father-son or mentor player night. And so what we do is we ask the players, you know, bring in a male figure that's important to you. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a male. If there's a female in your life that you consider a mentor or has had a positive impact on your life, they get to come in, and we actually have them put the helmet decals on the helmets together. And so that's a special moment. And then we have the mentor talk about the player in front of everybody. And, you know, a lot of emotions come out. it's a pretty powerful moment where to see a group of guys, because again, guys in general sometimes have a hard time talking about that stuff, and that's a real special moment that we do. And last year we had Greg Jones, who played at Michigan State, won a Super Bowl with the New York Giants, come out and talk to all the mentors there, and it was a real powerful moment. And something like, for as long as I coach, is something we're going to do. And lastly, we have an early morning breakfast, and we run the Lamphere Hill at the Lamphere High School. They have a park over there. There's a little hill, and we wake up early in the morning, tell our kids to be there at 5:30. The sun is just coming up, and we run up and down the hill a few times. Then we go have breakfast back at the school. And the reason we do it is because not necessarily that I think the kids, running up and down the hill that 3, 4, 5 times is really going to make a difference in the season, but it's teaching them that, like, okay, it's okay to discipline yourself and go to bed a half an hour early the night before and wake up the next day, because to prove to yourself that you can do it, because sometimes it's not easy, and sleep's really important to kids, especially in the summertime. But I just want to show them that one time that, like, it can be done, and watch what happens. And it ends up being, again, an awesome day, awesome moment, where it's crisp out in the morning, the sun's just coming up, and we're running. Then we go back and, break bread together and hang out and, talk and, make new friendships. And so those are kind of some of the things we've done and we'll continue to do.
I want to, I got this question for you, well, for both you coaches, because there's this old adage that you remember the losses stick with you more than the wins do. And for you, Coach Parker, specifically, you had a loss where you lost in the first round to King, and then they ended up going on to win the state championship. And then the next year, you won the state. Well, you and your team won the state championship. So I wonder, what sticks more? Obviously, winning a state championship is amazing. Does losing that game 7-6, do you still have nightmares about that game and still have great dreams? Like, when you go to sleep at night, like, do you get nightmares about that 7-6 loss, or do you have the great visions of the state championship? And how does that keep you motivated? Do the losses keep you up at night, or does the state championship help you rest easy every time you go to bed?
I have no regrets on any of my losses, because I feel we win the championship every year because we do a great job at sending kids to school on National Signing Day. And that's my true championship. There's been coaches that's been coaching 25, 35, 40 years. I'm 38. It's been coaches been coaching my age and has never coached in the state championship. I coached in the state championship 3 times, as a head coach. 4 times if you count the year I was an assistant coach and defensive coordinator at Inkster High School. So I don't look at those losses. I look at them as great opportunities that others haven't had. I mean, just the process of, practicing and setting up a schedule around Thanksgiving and talking to your family members about it, Thanksgiving night, and, you guys are playing a big game tomorrow and it's on TV. There's win, lose, or draw. The experience alone lightens your heart up like no other and just revs your engine to be ready to take a shot at getting that same adrenaline rush that next year. And so that's what really drives me, seeing the way the kids and the people in the community are smiling and happy just at the game, the process of getting to the game. So, no, I haven't had any nightmares about the 7-6 loss. I haven't had any nightmares about the DeWitt loss in the championship. I haven't had any nightmares about the West Catholic loss in the championship. I haven't had any nightmares about the East Grand Rapids loss. My first time coaching in the state championship in 2008 when I was defensive coordinator at Inkster. I haven't had those regrets. I just look at them like, wow, how blessed am I? You know what I mean? How many guys have really put their time and effort and everything into this game and has never gotten to the championship. And I've been there 4 times. And I've only been coaching for 13 years now, and so I'm blessed, man, and honored just to have that shot. And I think I go and represent so many coaches every time I take that field, and they're at home watching us, supporting us. Man, Parker's my guy. I'm going out on the field for that guy because he may never coach there. So that's the way I look at it. I know that's a different outlook, but hey, why not? Why be a pessimist and always complain? It's not going to fix anything. So I might as well just enjoy the experiences that I have, because life's too short to be having nightmares and pissed off about stuff that you don't got no control over. Let the game be the game. Let the chips fall where they're made. Coach the kids up so they can play hard and have fun, because, they say it all the time. What they say, favor always goes to the brave. And that's the way I look at it. You know what I mean? We can't go in the game like a coward. Just favor ends up going to the brave. And I look at it, hey, no matter what's going to happen, we're going to go out this thing and we're going to play our best. We're going to play our hardest. And whatever happens, I'm going to love you at the end of it, whether you play great or play your worst. So that's me. That's just my outlook.
Absolutely. Now, Coach Barnes, you got to hold up a trophy at Ford Field and make some history as a head coach at Bishop Foley, winning the Prep Bowl. And you overcame you and your team, overcame some rivals, some difficult situations, and you have built up a lot of success at Bishop Foley, but especially with getting to hoist up that Prep Bowl trophy. What would you say to that same question I just asked Coach Parker?
Yeah, I want to kind of echo what he said really quick. It's funny. The other day, I watched the 30 for 30 about the Buffalo Bills and the amount of criticism they've gotten for, losing 4 Super Bowls. And, ask Barry Sanders, ask all those other great players, Chris Carter, Dan Marino. He played in one, but ask a lot of those great players who've never played in the Super Bowl. Have them ask Jim Kelly and Thurman Thomas and all those guys what it was like to experience that and have that moment. I'm sure they would all wish, they could do it. And for us, first time in school history, we won the Prep Bowl, the Catholic League Prep Bowl. Really proud of that, and we did have to overcome some stuff. It's kind of cheesy, right? But a lot of times coaches talk about the 5-year plan or the process, state of the process, and whatnot. But it's true. You can't skip ahead to success. And if you do that, you're probably doing it the wrong way, right? You're probably cheating, or you're probably selling your soul to go recruit some kids from somewhere else. But if you really do it the right way, you stay true to your process and who you are, and you keep building on each experience, whether that's a win or a loss, and until you get to your ultimate goal. And so, we had a couple teams that we've struggled against in our league, and whatnot. And so we were able to finally, climb the mountaintop and win the Prep Bowl. And we're really proud of that.
That's awesome. Coach Parker? Possibly some technical difficulties. Well, Coach Barnes, let's kind of keep that thing going. Winning is amazing, right? Everybody, wins and losses. It's super important, but in that moment when you got to hold that trophy up, surrounded by your team, your coaches, your family, thousands of people in the stands at Ford Field, how does that moment, not only represent all the hard work you've ever put in, but how does it just keep you wanting to go get more?
Yeah, it was a tremendous feeling, and looking at our kids and looking at the amount of people, and because it wasn't just parents that were in the stands that day. We had a lot of alums in the stands that day. We had a lot of teachers from the school in the building or at Ford Field that day in the stands, and just knowing it meant so much to so many people. That was pretty awesome. And so it's a great feeling, right? And that's a feeling that we all strive for, is that moment. Like you said, when you work hard and put in that extra effort, and finally reach that moment, it's really indescribable. And the thing that, I think sometimes coaches get a bad rap about is that, if your only goal is winning, you're not going to be happy. And I know that sounds kind of crazy though, because, we told our kids, like, don't focus on championships. I want you to focus on being a champion. And that's how you carry yourself every day, right? And whether it be in school, on the practice field, or off the field. And so when we went into a game situation, we never said, this is a big game that we have to win, and just stare at the scoreboard. It was just, you control what you can control, right? Because the other team's coached up too, and they want to win, right? So focus on doing your job, focus on playing as hard as you can till the end of the whistle, and good things will happen. And so, in my opinion, that's why we've had the success that we've had, is because we're not putting the cart before the horse. Do you know what I'm saying? We're not trying to skip ahead to the ultimate. We're focused on the here and now, and that's what matters.
Excellent. Coach Parker, I want to, so I got Coach Barnes, who's more of an offensive guy, and Coach Parker, you're more of a defensive guy. I wonder, can I get you guys to battle back and forth about how you guys would scheme against each other a little bit? I know.
Absolutely. Listen, absolutely not. I'm already 0-1 against Coach Parker in my career. I don't know if he remembers that, but
yeah, River Rouge versus Harper Woods. Harper Woods.
That was a good football game, but yeah,
yes,
we took the L.
For real though. Okay, so so I guess what I would say, I know you guys were both talking at the same time, but Coach Barnes talked about the screen passes, and Coach Parker, you talked about your defensive scheme, more geared toward the odd front. How would you, Coach Parker? How would you, if River Rouge played Foley, what would be some inside things that you would do to scheme against Coach Barnes's very successful screen game?
Well, obviously, the first thing that you got to identify is what type of quarterback is this for Brian Barnes' team? Because the type of quarterback that he has is going to be a direct reflection of the different types of packages that he's going to open up on you. And so back when he was at Harper Woods, he had a dual threat quarterback that was going to pull the ball on the backside of zone read. But, Coach Barnes back then was very, very innovative. So he had, some RPO stuff going on. This was back in 2010, 2011, before RPO really had hit the market. He had a 3-by-1 and bubble going to the right, and they'll be running zone to the left, and they'll be reading the backside in. And so the quarterback would either key screen it and throw it out there if it's 3-on-2, or he would, if it's 3-on-3, then he's going to go through his zone process and now read the backside 5 technique and find out, is he going to sit and surf, or is he going to flip his hips and go and chase the dive? If he went and chased the dive, then now you got a pretty good athlete on the edge versus a linebacker trying to chase him from the inside out. And so when you're looking at a Brian Barnes team, you got to find out what type of cue is it. Is it that type of guys, or is it more of a guy that's trying to dink and dunk you to death and really get some rhythm going in all of his non-vertical concepts that Coach Barnes has, whether it's all hitches or whether it's his mesh concepts, whether it's his screen game. He's got some things inside of his toolbox that he does that I call them rhythm creators. He wants to create rhythm for his passer and put him in a position where he starts to feel confident about the calls. So for me, the way I want to scheme it up, I would come into the game with a hybrid style of a defense, meaning we would be able to play with what we have on the field, no matter whether he's in 10 personnel and plans to run or in 10 personnel and tries to pass. Because the last thing that really could affect you with a Brian Barnes team is the style of tempos that he has. And he's going to attack you with, he can speed it up when he wants, or he can slow it down when he wants. And so you have to be prepared for that, and knowing he's not necessarily going to exchange personnel to get into when he wants to run it. he'll possibly even use the guys that he has on the field by getting into bunt sets and things like that to really put you in a really he's going to create angles for his guys to get blocks done and create space for his players. Whereas most coaches are going to want to send on an extra defensive end or an extra backer, things like that. You got to be able to play with what you got. Otherwise, you're going to get caught up with having 12 guys on the field. So for us, it's being able to create some type of pressure, man pressure, zone pressure that has a match principle on the back end of it, and really trying to overload where he wants to create his mesh with his quarterback. So I want to bring two off the edge of where the tailback is located, simply because he's possibly going to have some jet motion that he's going to bring, and jet motion is usually traditionally going to go towards the tailback, so he gains a blocker. So I want to bring two from where the tailback is located, maybe stunt my defensive line opposite, and then obviously play a match principle or a man-to-man principle, or even empty out from the back end and go into cover zero and really try and get his quarterback on the grass a little bit when they're ready to do some drop back stuff. But I think the 3-on-3 and having some, doing 3-on-3 if he's 3-by-1, or if he's 2-by-2, being 2-by-2 and having two guys ready to check his two guys, we got to be cognizant of the slot fade. So we would play a off guy on the interior and a press guy on the edge, just to really try and start creating some issues, so that if they did decide to bubble and use the screen game, the corner will be able to come and support and fit from the outside in and force the bubble to have to cut it up. And here comes, the overhang that was checking him, the deep safety, so on and so forth. So those are some of the things that we would do. Try and get the quarterback on the grass and drop back, cover down his detached receivers with detached defensive backs and not linebackers, so he doesn't have a matchup scenario going on, and really make sure that we are controlling the tempo of the game and not allowing him to.
Ooh. All right, Coach. Coach Barnes.
Tom, I told you he's one of the best, and I don't think we're sharing this episode with the other members of the Catholic League or the teams on our schedule in 2022. But
you guys play next week. I didn't know.
Right, no doubt. So the thing, from film study and knowing what Coach Parker does, I would need to make sure and figure out what's he doing with his odd front, right? And is he slanting his guys? Is he stunting their guys? Are they stemming? Are they moving around a little bit? Like Coach was saying, how much do they blitz? What type of coverage is he playing behind it? One of the things for us is we try to be a big matchup team, and we're trying to be a big numbers team. Okay, so through film study, try to find matchups that we think we can exploit. Okay, and how do we exploit that? Right, try to get into a situation where our better players, whether it be receivers or running back, are matched up with one of their guys where we feel we win that matchup. That's something I would do. And, Coach talked about all the, different types of fronts he can play with his odd front and his mint front and whatnot, stuff like that. One of the other things with that is, we try to manipulate it by, is there a defender that we think we would have trouble with blocking? We would make sure that we try to read that guy. And it might be, doesn't have to necessarily be a down defensive lineman or defensive end type guy. It might be a linebacker, right? So it might be a B gap linebacker type. And so we look and see if we can try to manipulate guys that way if we struggle with blocking them. And Coach mentioned we are a big tempo team, and that's one of the things that I like about tempo, and it can cause headaches for defensive guys, is that if we get lined up quickly, Coach has to rely on, or some of his players have to rely on, communicating really well and communicating really fast with what their calls and their checks are, because we might snap the ball right when the referee sets the ball, and we do that, hoping we can catch a team off guard that maybe their defensive lineman is looking over to Coach trying to get his call, and he's not down and ready for the snap. And so tempo plays a huge part in it. And then another thing is that I go back to the numbers thing, whether it be like Coach mentioned, when we're 3-by-1, or sometimes empty, right? If we have numbers there, but also numbers in the box, when do we want to run the ball? I'm a big believer that anytime you have a 5-man box, you should run the ball. If it's 3rd and 9 and you're comfortable and you're confident in your offense, as an offensive thinker, we're pretty confident in what we do. If it's a 5-man box and it's 3rd and 9, we got to have, the stones to run the ball and be willing to go for it on 4th down. depending on where we're at in the field. And so, again, a lot of it depends on, matchups, and then, the chess match comes into play, which is great about offensive versus defensive coaches, right? By film study, in theory, we should get an idea what downs does coach like to blitz. He's bringing pressure on third down, and all right, we have to have an answer for that, whether it be screen or sprint out, or quick game, so to speak. And so, I mean, coach is one of the best for a reason, and that would be a fun matchup again. Depending on we had similar personnel, it'd be a lot of fun.
That's awesome, fellas. Thank you both for that. That was incredible. Listen, though. Okay, so we're getting up against it here. Coach Parker, I do want to touch on something that I'm very curious on is how, you've been very successful in taking kids outside the game and being, winners in life, and that's such a part of being a high school football coach is wins and losses, very important, but you're also like a mentor to young men, and you've taken on some roles. I understand you're also the athletic director at River Rouge. So you're I don't want to say not just a football coach, but you've taken on an incredible leadership position in River Rouge where sometimes these kids got the odds stacked up against them. How have you been able to mold these young men in sometimes impossible situations and get them to D1 school? Not D1, obviously that's amazing, but D2, D3, just getting to that level after high school. How have you been able to do that so successfully?
Yeah. So, a lot of my guys fight identity crisis per se. I have one particular kid that his brother was very, very involved with murders and a lot of gang related and drug related incidents where he is now incarcerated. And the younger brother made a decision to not follow his older brother and really just fell in love with the game of football. And it got so bad in his household at one point that he moved in with me. And now he's the starting cornerback at the University of Tennessee. And, made plays in the bowl game, had an interception in the bowl game versus Purdue. And just went through surgery, came home. First house he came over was at my house on the couch as if he belonged there. And so it's really just creating a consistent approach of identifying the journey of success and the difference in the two paths. You can't have both. And that's one thing that I really, hang my hat on. You can't be a thug and a ball player at the same time. Those two guys don't know each other. And so I hold my hat to that. And being an African-American male in urban communities where most people want to teeter that line of, oh, I'm going to smoke weed, I'm going to hang out, I'm going to party, I'm going to get into fights and be involved with gang-related activity. But I'm going to college. I'm going to get offers. I'm going to the league. No, you're not. That's so fake. That's so much bull crap. Because you can only do one or the other. You can't have both. I haven't met anyone that was good enough to do both. You know what I mean? Mentally, spiritually, socially, it's impossible. So I tell them vividly exactly what each path is going to look like and what's going to happen if you go down this road versus if you go down this road, which takes a little bit more time. It's going to be a little bit of sweat. There's going to be some days that we cry together. It's going to be some days that you're sore. It's going to be so worth it in the end. And they trust me because they've seen me have a good college football career at Eastern Michigan. And they've seen me able to take care of my family. And so they're able to see Black love. They're able to see myself and my wife married with kids, a great family, and able to, bring them inside the household and sit down and have dinner at the dinner table. And they want that. They just never seen it before. It's so rare. So you introduce them to something different and they see, wow, if I do this, I got a chance do what I really want to do instead of me just saying it and it being a dream. I just got a chance of doing it. So now Kamal Haddon actually has, he said he wanted to go to the NFL. Well, he has another season like what he had this year. He's going to be probably one of the top defensive backs picked in next year's NFL draft. No different than Armarion Smith playing safety at Cincinnati right now. No different than Rook Orororo that plays defensive tackle at Clemson. No different than, any of those guys that I've been able to put out into these schools. No different than Reggie Pearson, who plays safety at Texas Tech. All of these guys that we've been able to put out, there's also a bunch of guys that went and played D2 and NAI football that have got their degrees now. And they're the first graduate in their family because they were an inch too short or maybe 0.2 of a second slower on their 40. They were good football players too, just didn't get recruited by a bigger school. So that was the large amount of kids that we were able to put out of here from 2009 until, I would say, 2013 when we had our first Division I guy leave out of here. So for us, it's really treating every single one of them as if we love them unconditionally. And we're showing them this is the way that you got to live your life. There's consequences to negative behavior. And we're transparent about it, and we're very direct about it. And we let them know we're not going to tolerate anything other than you giving your best effort at everything you do. That's academically, that's socially, and that's athletically. And we keep it in perspective. Athletically is last for a reason. Because if they're a bad student, I can't send you to a great school. I can't send you to a university. I can't send you anywhere. If you're a bad person, I can't send you anywhere because you're going to affect my name, my reputation, our reputation, which now is going to hinder the next ball player that may want an offer from that school, is going to hinder him from being able to go there. So that's what it's really about. It's really, you got one time to create a great impression. And when I send a kid out to a school, you're my chance of creating a great impression. You're going to be the difference maker on why that school wants to come and recruit and offer kids here, or a reason that school doesn't want to come here ever again because you went and you embarrassed me, you embarrassed yourself, you embarrassed your program. So we hold them to standards, and I think those standards, remain true to who we are.
Coach, what I think is awesome about that story is that we touched on it a little bit last week with Coach Rabideau about how the impact we can have on kids at this level, that maybe we wouldn't have at the next level, and kind of what's our why, right? And that's obvious what your why is, and that's why we do what we do. You know what I'm saying? And that's why we coach at the high school level, and it's special. And that's why, I'm sure you've had opportunities to coach at the next level. I've got some connections at the next level, you know what I mean? But this is the impact we have now is greater than it would be probably at that level where, they're adults and they're like, they know everything. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And this is still different where we can kind of mold them and help them get to that point and help them see their future in a positive way. Yeah. Everything else going good?
Yeah. Everything's going great. It's January in my household, and January in my household is it's a blessing, but it's also one of the most stressful times of the year for us. Yeah. The coaching carousel. I mean, you're talking about offers and universities coming in here and offering the kids, but it's stressful. And that's not the stressful part of my household. The stressful part of my household is the universities that reach out to me and have interest in my skill set. It's tough, but like I said, it's a blessing because how many guys have coached for years and never had a university reach out to them?
Right. Well, how often, I'm sure you talked to Ron at Michigan now, Bellamy, right? In his situation, I mean, really similar. He made that jump. Like you said, I'm sure you have those opportunities, and like you always wonder, but ultimately you do what's best for you and your family and all that stuff, and it works out, right? How does your school handle, like, when you guys you know how it used to be when schools would just pop in and like, hey, can I see coach and talk to so and so? Like, guys lately, at least for me, they've at least would shoot me a text or something and say, hey, coach, I'm planning on coming in tomorrow. Is that cool? Is your school pretty cool when you get guys come in and stuff like that?
Yeah. So I'll have, about 5 appointments of 5 schools and Division I schools, but then I'll have like 4 other guys that just pop up. That's from Group of 5 schools or MAC schools or Division 2 schools or Power 5 schools that are new to their university and don't got my contact information.
Oh, gotcha.
So when those walk-ins come in, hopefully I don't have a coach in the office already. And the school is cool about it. So they just sit down and they got to wait until I get done meeting with who's there, because we go by the appointments first and just, so it's been really good. My receptionists, they're all, very hospitable, and get them water and coffee and snacks and whatever they need, and give them the transcript so they can do an academic eval while they're sitting there waiting on me to finish meeting with the coach. And then, because, the new rule of they can't bump into players and they can't visit with the players really. So I before that rule came in, it was fairly easy. I'll really just find out who's sitting in the lobby. All right, cool. Who you want to see? And then I'll just sit the kid down with him while I'm meeting with the coach. And by the time I come out, we can, sit and talk. But now it's different. I can't put a kid with a coach. So they all want to come and visit with me. So it's the school has been very, very good with it. I mean, they allow just about anybody to come in and visit with me about players and go about their business that way.
That's cool. Did most of your seniors sign already, or are you going to have a couple sign in February?
Yeah, so I had 2 of them signed to Division 1 schools in December. And then right now I have 7 of them done already. I got 2 4 to sign in February. I got 2 more I got to get squared away.
Gotcha.
To finish out my February signing day.
Cool. Good deal.
Coach, with the recruiting, your job as a head high school football coach is so important in the recruiting process. What do you do when there's a kid that thinks he's good enough to go, but he's just not? Have you ever had to just break that down to him, or you're probably just not going to get there, or because that's got to be a really hard part of being a high school coach, because a lot of these kids, they get hyped up. They think they're good enough, but sorry kid, you're probably not going to make it. But at the same time, you're a mentor, and so how do you approach that when a kid he's just not athletically or just not talented enough to make it up there, and you got to break that down to him?
Yeah, so we keep it in perspective from day one inside of our meetings with our parents. We let the parents know, and we let the players know inside of this introductory meeting. It's a huge meeting. I cater out food. We sit down, and I'll let them know, your life outside of football is going to be so much more precious than your life in football. So let's keep things in perspective. You're not going to leave here and go to the NFL. You'll leave here and go and get your degree. You'll leave here and go and make your life better in that facet. If there's a small chance to play professional ball after that, it will show up because of your success at the college level. So let's talk about that. Exposure works 2 ways. I take them to these college coaches in their camps. I take them to the junior days to meet the coaches and develop relationships. But I also take them to college football practices so they can get a vivid picture on what these guys actually look like. So if I'm a 5'7" defensive back, now I played defensive back at the Division 1 level, and I'm 6'2", right? So they got a pretty good understanding of how big defensive backs are. So if you're 5'7" defensive back, I'm not going to say you can't play college football at all. I'm going to say you just can't play here. Because assessment-wise, they're not going to recruit your size at that position. But if you do what I asked you to do in the classroom, you give me a 3.5 GPA, you bust your butt, I can find someplace for you that'll be in love with the 5'7" guy that comes out of our program. And so we have been able to do things that way. So it's just a general assessment of the kid's skill, their ability, and their size. And I tell the parents, very vividly, I cannot control their genetics. I can't stretch them and make them 3 inches taller. Whatever they have been given by God and by the genetics of mom and dad is what I have to work with. And college coaches are height freaks. They love height. And if you're not tall and long, that's a lot of points against you. So I try and be very clear with them. You'll have a chance to play college football. It just may not be where you dream of. So when you get here at that meeting, I'll tell them all, you're not a fan of any university anymore. You're not a fan. You're a fan of yourself. You got to drop the I want to go to Michigan State. I want to go to Michigan. I want to go to Clemson. I want to go to Alabama. You have to drop that. You got to go be the best version of you first. And so that's one thing that we've done. And it's hard because parents are going to believe that their son is the best ever. But the best thing that I can do is create a transparent outlook in my program and have the parents come and watch film too. So if I open up film session, so we have film session on Sundays, the players come in at 3, any parent wants, they can come in from 12 to 2:30 and they can sit and watch exactly who Johnny really is. My practices are open to the public. So if mom or dad or his uncle that played a little bit of college football somewhere believes he's an All-American, come on to practice. Come and watch who Jason really is. And we can have a transparent conversation after practice on who he is, after board drill, after somebody puts him on his back 4 or 5 times, or after we get out of the we call it the Butkus drill. You got a blocker, you got a block shedder, you got a ball carrier, you got a tackler. Once let's see who Jason is in this drill right here. Because if he can't do this drill right here efficiently at any one of them 4 spots, college football at the highest level, come on, baby, that ain't for you. Let's keep it real. So that's what I do. I make sure we keep it as real as possible. I'm not going to crush your dreams. I'm just going to allow your dreams to become reality by pointing you in the right direction. By saying, hey, you're not a Power 5 guy. You have no offers from Power 5 schools, but you got a 3.8. So I may be able to help you go to a Patriot League school. I may be able to help you go to an Ivy League school. I may be able to help you go to Air Force, Army, or Navy. So now you can play against those Power 5 schools. If you give me the film that works. Now, let's say you're a 3.8, 3.9 kid and you're 5'7". Well, I know a lot of guys at the Division III level that's going to cash you out, son. You're going to get money coming out of your ears to go and play Division III football because you got the grades. You got some ability, you just don't got the height. So my job is to be, that sports agent per se, that's going to be able to wheel and deal and set up situations for my smallest guy to my biggest guy and make sure, most importantly, it's a great fit. That's why we had so many players playing on television from December the 26th until January the 1st. They weren't just standing on the sideline, cheering their team on, which is cool too. My guys were on the field getting interceptions, forced fumbles, big hits, sacks, rushing yards. My freshman quarterback that helped us win the state championship rushed for like 90 yards on 8 or 9 carries versus Nevada in the Quick Lane Bowl at Ford Field.
Wow.
He's a freshman. So for me, it's, and that's hard to do. It's hard to get in the game as a quarterback. It's hard to do. It's hard to transition from high school to college. And my guys are out there on the field because it's about the fit. Putting them in systems and schemes and coaches that fit their skill set and who they are, instead of me being a fan and saying, oh, I got to send you to Michigan because, I love Michigan. Or I got to send you to Eastern Michigan because that's my alma mater. Or I got to send you to Michigan State because I really love Michigan State. I can't be a fan. I have to be a relationship-based guy with every school that comes in here because that's fair and equal to the kids that play for me.
Now, Coach Barnes, on that same set, how do you approach this? Because in the Catholic League, at Bishop Foley, the expectation is you go to high school and then you go to college. Maybe not necessarily as an athlete, but definitely as a student. So how do you find the dynamic of sending kids to college as athletes and, or just students?
Yeah. By the way, Coach mentioned Jason. I thought you were going to say you had a Davis on your team, like Coach 30 would talks about Davis. I know you see that Twitter guy. One of the funniest things, one of the funniest dudes out there. So awesome. I wish I would have thought of that. I'd be rich right now. He's hilarious. But similar to what Coach said, there are some measurables on. It is what it is that kids, if they don't meet that certain measurable, right, whether it be height, weight, or whatnot, or skill set, they might be limited as to how high they can go. And to echo what Coach said, though, we stressed our kids, as long as you have good grades, you can play college football somewhere, and you can get a lot of your education paid for and a lot of your degree paid for just by having good grades, and that's important. And I tell parents all the time, I'm currently, I'm not a college football coach, but if you think your kid is a Division I kid or Division II kid or whatnot, we, like Coach does, we really push the camp scene. Go to those camps, and those guys will give you an honest evaluation, and then you can compare yourself to all the other kids at the camp and kind of see where you are. And so that's helped out a lot. And and I don't mean that as me taking the easy way out of it, but it definitely holds more water because I'm a parent too. I get it. But sometimes parents can be unrealistic, right? About how good their kid is. And so coming from me is one thing, but if they can get that observation from somebody who's at the next level, it holds more water. So, ultimately, like Coach said, if you play at the next level, you're doing something right. You've done the right thing in the classroom, and you're a competitor, and you're getting after it, and you're serious about what you do, and you're disciplined, and you want to go do it. That's special. And it goes back to, again, kind of what I talked about last week, the game of football, the friends you meet, you're in the relationships and stuff. You're going to be talking about that the rest of your life, no matter if you're playing at LB in college or you're playing at Notre Dame. You're going to have cherish those moments just like any other player does.
That's awesome. Well, fellas, I think we can wrap it up on it. Man, my gosh, the time goes fast. Man, Coach Parker, it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you and talk to you. So I guess, Coach Parker, is there anything you just want to say to the people out here that are going to listen to this podcast that is just based on Michigan high school football and all the great things that Michigan high school football has to offer?
We've got great coaches in the state of Michigan. I mean, guys are working with everything from, on one side of the state, you've got coaches dealing with guys straight off the streets, got some, gang related stuff going on, and we got to break all of those things down. We've got kids that are in households that are 100% farmers, and no one in the family is an athlete, and they're just going out there because their friends are playing it. You've got such a wide spectrum. You've got kids that are from 2-parent households. You got parents from 1-parent household. You got parents that are coming from orphanage, foster care, and they love the game. And you got coaches in our state that does such a fantastic job of fostering a great environment that's competitive, that helps them get better at the sport that they've learned to love, and create an environment about care and teamwork and effort. And that's good. That's good. That's so good for the kids to take this and go into the next phase of their life with. Just like what Coach Barnes said, every young man, every boy should play football because it just teaches them hard work and effort and teamwork and unity and all of those great things. So that's one of the main things I want to make sure everyone knows is what type of great coaches we got in our state, and that we do put academics and safety in front of everything else. We take care of these boys out on the field as if they were our own son, because our passion of the game, most of us had great coaches too. We had someone that treated us like we had an extra dad at home and made sure we were safe and made sure we had food after games or before games or after practice or whatever we needed. Those coaches were giving it. And so now we're just that next We're just that next fraternity, that next breed of young coaches that's keeping this thing going for the greater good of our great sport of football.
That's awesome. And Coach Barnes, episode number 2, it was pretty awesome. How would you like to end this show?
I just want to say, like I said, Tom, when I told you that I was going to reach out to Corey to have him on this episode, he's one of the best around. I'm proud to say I know him. I consider him a friend, just an absolute great guy, and I'm glad he's in our game. And Coach, thanks for coming on. I hope you enjoyed it. It's pretty awesome, and we're going to keep building this thing and this podcast. It's going to be a lot of fun, and thanks for being here.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you guys. I had some fun, Tom. Brian, definitely look at you as a friend, bro. Anything I can ever do, for the podcast or either you guys programs, whatever you guys got going on, I would love to help. But thank you so much for your time this evening and just, putting some effort into acknowledging coaches and the extra things that we go into just to make this special for someone else's child. So thanks again. And as always, great day to be a Panther.
That's awesome. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Coach's Office. Again, Coach Parker, thank you so much. Coach Barnes, we're going to keep moving, man. We're going to get better and better. Like I said last week, this podcast is still just a baby. We're getting used to all these technical difficulties and all this stuff. But we're going to figure it out, and it's going to get better and better. It's going to be hard to top you, though, Coach Parker. Holy smokes, man. That was oh, man. All right. So, yeah, there's going to be some big shoes to fill next week and the weeks to come. But so thank you so much. And let's just look forward to next week and talking more high school football in the state of Michigan. And, I don't even want to end it. I want to keep talking. I want to answer the questions. And we're not gonna. We're gonna wrap it up. We can talk football all day long, but we're gonna wrap this one up. So, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We will be back next week, and we're gonna keep trying to have a different guest every week. We're always going to have me and Coach Barnes, and we're just going to be talking football. High school football in the state of Michigan is alive and well, and we're going to talk about it. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Good night.